There are moments in life when walking away feels easier than staying, when the weight of a relationship, a responsibility, or a person becomes too heavy, and your heart quietly whispers, just leave. But what if, in that very moment, there is a deeper test unfolding? What if the person you are thinking of abandoning is actually someone Allah placed in your life for a reason? Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not in what you gain, but in who you refuse to leave behind. There are people in your life whose presence feels so constant that you stop noticing their value. They are always there, always available, always willing to listen, to support, to stand by you, even when you are not at your best. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to treat their presence as something guaranteed rather than something gifted. You stop saying thank you. You stop recognizing their sacrifices. You stop seeing the quiet ways they show up for you. Not because you are a bad person, but because familiarity can sometimes blur appreciation. And this is where the test begins, because the ones who are easiest to overlook are often the ones who are most sincere. They are not loud about what they do. They don't remind you of their efforts. They don't demand recognition. They simply remain loyal, patient, and present. And sometimes Allah places such people in your life not because you deserve them, but because you are being tested through them. Tested in your gratitude, tested in your humility, tested in how you treat someone who cannot benefit you in a worldly way. Think about it. How often do we run after people who barely care about us, while neglecting those who would never leave our side? How often do we prioritize those who are distant, while ignoring those who are always near? It's a painful reality that we tend to chase what is unavailable and overlook what is constant. And yet, the constant ones, they are a mercy. They are the ones who make dua for you without you knowing. They are the ones who defend you when you are not in the room. They are the ones who forgive you even when you don't apologize properly. But because they stay, you assume they always will, until one day they don't. And that's when the absence begins to speak louder than their presence ever did. That's when you realize the emotional space they used to fill. That's when you notice the silence where their care once existed. That's when regret quietly settles in, not because you lost them suddenly, but because you slowly failed to value them. Allah does not place people in your life randomly. Every connection has a purpose. Every relationship carries a responsibility. And sometimes the people you take for granted are the very ones through whom Allah is watching your character most closely. How you speak to them, how you respond to their needs, how patient you are when they are not perfect, because they are not just part of your life, they are part of your test. And the danger is not always in losing them physically, but in losing the ability to recognize their worth while they are still there. And sometimes the greatest mistake is not that someone left your life, but that you made them feel like staying did not matter. Loyalty is often seen as something emotional, something that comes naturally when you love someone, when you feel connected, when everything is going well. It feels easy to stay when you are appreciated, when you are understood, when the relationship gives you comfort and peace. But true loyalty is not measured in moments of ease. It is revealed in moments of strain. Because if loyalty were only based on feelings, it would disappear the moment those feelings change. And feelings do change. They rise and fall, they become strong and then weak. They are affected by words, by misunderstandings, by distance, by expectations that are not met. If your commitment to someone is tied only to how you feel, then your loyalty will always be unstable. But when loyalty is rooted in something deeper, something beyond emotion, it becomes an act of worship. It becomes intentional. You begin to stay not just because your heart feels like it, but because you recognize that how you treat people matters to Allah. You begin to hold back your anger, not because you have none, but because you are aware that every word you speak is witnessed. You begin to show patience, not because it is easy, but because you know that patience with people carries weight in the sight of Allah. And suddenly, your relationships are no longer just about you. They become a reflection of your character, a reflection of your sincerity, a reflection of your awareness that Allah sees what others do not. There are moments when someone will disappoint you. They may fail to meet your expectations. They may not respond to your efforts in the way you hoped. They may even hurt you unintentionally. And in those moments, your ego will speak loudly. It will tell you to withdraw. It will tell you to match their behavior. It will tell you that you deserve better treatment. But loyalty, when it is for the sake of Allah, does not immediately react to the ego. It pauses, it reflects, it asks, what is the right way to respond here? Not just the easy way, because sometimes being loyal means giving people the benefit of the doubt. It means choosing to understand before judging. It means remaining consistent in your values even when others are inconsistent in theirs. And that consistency is powerful, not because it makes you weak, but because it shows strength that is not dependent on circumstances. There is a difference between being attached to people and being committed to doing what is right in your relationships. Attachment can make you blind, but sincere loyalty makes you conscious. You become aware of your responsibilities. You become careful with your words. You become intentional with your actions. And even when no one appreciates it, you know that Allah does. There are people who will only stay in your life as long as you meet their expectations. The moment you fall short, they distance themselves. Their loyalty was conditional, tied to convenience, tied to benefit, tied to how you made them feel. But when your loyalty is an act of worship, it is not built on conditions that change every day. It is built on principles. It does not mean you allow yourself to be disrespected. It does not mean you tolerate harm. It means that your default is sincerity, not reaction. You give your best because that is who you choose to be, not because others always deserve it. And sometimes the greatest form of loyalty is not in grand gestures, but in the quiet consistency of showing up, being patient, and refusing to let temporary emotions destroy something that still holds value. Because when loyalty is for Allah, it is never wasted. There are moments in life when dealing with people becomes heavy, not because you hate them, but because their behavior begins to test parts of you that you didn't know were fragile. They may repeat the same mistakes. They may misunderstand you again and again. They may fail to meet expectations you never thought were too much to ask. And slowly your patience begins to wear thin. At first you try to overlook it. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You remind yourself of their good qualities. You make excuses for them in your mind, hoping that things will improve with time. But then it happens again and again and again, and what once felt small begins to feel overwhelming. This is where many people reach their limit. This is where the thought of walking away starts to feel justified. Because it's not just about one incident anymore, it's about a pattern. And yet, in these moments, something deeper is happening, because patience with people is not only about enduring their flaws, it is about confronting your own reactions. It reveals what is inside you. It shows you how quickly you get irritated, how easily your tone changes, how fast your heart shifts from calmness to frustration. You begin to notice that the real struggle is not always the person, but how their actions affect your inner state. And this is where the test becomes real, because it is easy to be patient when everything is smooth. It is easy to be kind when people treat you well, but patience that carries weight is the patience that exists when you have every reason to lose it. When someone pushes your limits and you still choose to respond with control. When someone disappoints you and you still choose dignity over reaction. When someone repeats their mistakes and you still choose to address it without cruelty. This kind of patience is not passive, it is active. It requires awareness. It requires restraint. It requires you to hold back words that are ready to come out. And sometimes it requires silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because you choose not to say something that will only create more damage. There are people in your life who will unknowingly trigger your weaknesses, not because they intend to harm you, but because they themselves are imperfect, just like you. And just like you need understanding at times, they need it too. This does not mean you ignore everything. It does not mean you allow yourself to be walked over. It means you respond with balance. You correct without humiliation. You express without aggression. You set boundaries without hatred. Because patience is not about suppressing everything inside you. It is about managing it. There is a difference between being patient and being silent while resentment builds. Real patience does not bury emotions. It processes them in a way that does not lead to harm. And this is difficult because when emotions rise, clarity fades. You may feel like your effort is one-sided. You may feel like you are the only one trying. You may feel like your patience is being taken for granted. And in those moments, your sincerity is being tested, not by how long you can endure, but by how you choose to endure. Do you let frustration turn into harshness? Do you allow repeated disappointment to harden your heart? Do you begin to treat them the way they treat you? Or do you remain anchored in your values even when the situation becomes uncomfortable? Because sometimes the person you are struggling to be patient with is not just part of your life, they are part of your growth. They expose areas in you that need strengthening. They force you to develop emotional discipline. They push you to rise above reactions that would otherwise control you. And while it may feel exhausting, there is a quiet transformation happening within you, a strengthening of your character, a deepening of your self-control, a refinement of your ability to deal with people without losing yourself. And not every test is meant to break a relationship. Some tests are meant to build you within it. Because the way you handle people when they are difficult often says more about you than the way you handle them when they are easy. Not every difficulty in a relationship is a sign that you need to walk away, but not every situation is meant to be endured either. And this is where many people struggle, because the line between what you should tolerate and what you should step away from is not always clear. Sometimes emotions cloud judgment. You may label something as toxic simply because it hurts, because it frustrates you, because it doesn't meet your expectations. But discomfort alone is not always a sign of harm. There are relationships that challenge you, stretch your patience, and require effort, not because they are damaging, but because they are real. Real relationships are not perfect. They involve misunderstandings. They involve moments of tension. They involve flaws on both sides. And sometimes what you are experiencing is not toxicity, but imperfection. Temporary hardship is often situational. It may come from stress, pressure, personal struggles, or a phase someone is going through. A person may act differently when they are overwhelmed. Their words may become sharper, their behavior less considerate, their presence less consistent. But these moments do not define who they are completely. If there is remorse, if there is effort to improve, if there is still respect beneath the mistakes, then what you are dealing with may not be harm, but hardship. And hardship requires patience, communication, and understanding. It requires you to look deeper than the surface, to ask yourself whether the issue is rooted in someone's character or in their current condition, because people go through phases. They have highs and lows. They have moments of strength and moments of weakness. They may fall short in ways they themselves regret. And if every low moment becomes a reason to leave, then no relationship will survive. But then there is another side, a more serious one. Toxic harm is not just about discomfort, it is about consistent damage. It is when respect is repeatedly broken, when your dignity is slowly stripped away, when your presence is not valued but tolerated or manipulated. It is when someone shows no willingness to change, no awareness of their behavior, and no concern for how it affects you. Toxicity is not occasional. It is a pattern of control, a pattern of disrespect, a pattern of emotional harm that leaves you feeling smaller, not stronger. And this is where staying is no longer patience, it becomes self-neglect. Because Islam does not ask you to endure oppression. It does not ask you to remain in a place where your well-being is consistently harmed. There is a difference between sacrificing for the sake of maintaining a relationship and sacrificing your own sense of worth. One brings reward, the other brings damage, and recognizing that difference requires honesty with yourself. You have to ask, is this person trying, even if imperfectly, or are they comfortable hurting me without any intention to change? Is this situation pushing me to grow, or is it slowly breaking me down? Sometimes the hardest part is accepting that not every relationship should be held onto in the same way. Because while some people are a test of your patience, others are a test of your boundaries. And both tests require strength, but in different forms. Patience requires you to stay with wisdom. Boundaries require you to step back with clarity. And confusing the two can lead to either unnecessary loss or prolonged harm. Because walking away too quickly can make you lose something valuable, but staying where you are constantly harmed can make you lose yourself. And the challenge is not just in deciding what to do, but in understanding what you are truly dealing with beneath the surface. There are moments when everyone else chooses the easy path. They step back, they distance themselves, they decide that it's no longer worth the effort. And in those moments, staying feels heavier than ever. Because you are no longer just dealing with the situation itself, you are also facing the silence left behind by others who chose to leave. You begin to question yourself. You wonder if you are being naive, if you are holding on to something that others have already given up on. It starts to feel like you are the only one trying. And that feeling can be exhausting. But not every situation is meant to be judged by what others do. Sometimes the crowd walks away not because leaving is right, but because staying requires a strength they are not willing to carry. Staying is not always about attachment. Sometimes it is about commitment. Sometimes it is about recognizing that there is still value where others only see difficulty. And that recognition is not easy, because when people leave, they often leave behind narratives. They justify their decision. They speak about their reasons. They make it seem like walking away was the only logical choice. And hearing those voices can slowly influence your own thoughts. You begin to see the situation through their lens. You begin to doubt the reasons you once had for staying. You begin to feel like maybe you are the one who is wrong. But sincerity is not always popular. Doing the right thing is not always supported. There are times when what is correct in the sight of Allah is not what is understood by people. And this is where your intention matters. Why are you staying? Is it out of fear of being alone? Is it out of habit? Or is it because you genuinely believe there is still goodness worth holding on to? Because staying without purpose can drain you, but staying with clarity can elevate you. There is a quiet strength in remaining present when it would be easier to disappear, in choosing to support someone when others have withdrawn, in choosing to be patient when others have lost hope, in choosing to give someone another chance when everyone else has closed the door. These choices are not always seen. People may not acknowledge them. They may not understand the weight you carry. They may not even appreciate your effort, but not everything is meant to be seen by people. Some actions are witnessed in a different way. Because when you stay for the right reasons, when you hold on to sincerity even in difficult moments, there is the reward that is not tied to immediate outcomes. It is not always about fixing the situation. It is not always about changing the person. Sometimes it is about what staying does to you. It builds resilience, it deepens your patience, it strengthens your ability to remain grounded when circumstances are unstable. And even if the outcome is not what you hoped for, even if things do not turn out perfectly, your effort is not lost, because in the sight of Allah, intention carries weight. The time you invested, the care you showed, the patience you practiced, none of it goes unnoticed. And there is a difference between staying in a way that drains your soul and staying in a way that aligns with your values. The first leaves you empty, the second leaves you refined. Because sometimes the reward of staying is not in how the situation changes, but in how you change through it. And while others may only see the difficulty, Allah sees the sincerity behind every moment you chose not to walk away. At the end of the day, life will place people in your path who will test more than just your emotions. They will test your character, your patience, your sincerity, and your awareness of Allah. Not every relationship is meant to be easy. Not every person is meant to agree with you, understand you, or meet you where you are. But within these interactions lies something deeper, a constant opportunity to choose who you are. You will face moments where leaving feels justified, moments where your patience feels stretched, moments where your effort feels unseen and unreturned. And in those moments, the question is not always, what are they doing? Sometimes the real question is, who am I becoming through this? Because how you treat people, especially when it is difficult, reveals the depth of your faith more than how you act when everything is easy. There will be people you are meant to be patient with, and there will be situations you are meant to step away from. But both require sincerity, both require awareness, both require you to act with intention, not just emotion. So be careful who you abandon, because sometimes the person you are ready to walk away from is someone Allah placed in your life as a trust to care, a trust to support, a trust to show character when it is hardest to do so. And if you hold on with the right intention, with balance, with wisdom, then no matter the outcome, you will never be at a loss, because what is done for the sake of Allah is never wasted. And every moment of patience, loyalty, and sincerity becomes something that follows you far beyond this life.